In this IBM BPM tutorial, we will learn about various deployment process in IBM BPM. So basically there are two deployment process in IBM BPM, offline deployment and online deployment. In this tutorial, we will discuss about online deployment or connected deployment in detail. So in IBM BPM, there are mainly two deployment process, like the way we do deployment in server. So there are two processes. One we called as a online deployment, okay, and another one is called as a offline deployment. Okay, so as we are aware, like in normal from any Java based application, if you want to deploy uh, any ER file to server, so normally what we do, the normal process is you will extract the ER file, and then sometime you can manually deploy into the server, or you can write some sort of a build script, and that build script will take care for the deployment. Okay, so here similar funda is here also. Okay, so what is the difference between online deployment and offline deployment? Okay, so online deployment says, okay, here we don't need to take any, the main difference, this is the main difference between online and offline deployment. Here we don't need to take any deployable binary, okay, binary directly from process center. We can install, okay, deployable file. Okay, you can say internally it will be a ER file, okay, deployable file to the process server. To the process server, this process server could be, okay, it could be a dev process server, or acceptance, staging, production, could be anything. Okay, so directly from the process center you can deploy to the process server. Okay, so this is the online deployment. So that's why the name itself says as an online, means directly from the process center you can do the deployment. But sometimes many companies, okay, they will not like such type of process. They want to go further, the usual process where we normally make the deployment, that like you will be having the deployable file, and that deployable file you will extract, and then you will deploy manually, or writing the build script you will deploy into the production. Because here there is no need for any deployable file and all. You just need to take a snapshot, okay, and that snapshot directly you can deploy to any process server. Okay, so offline deployment is more like as a traditional approach of deployment. Okay, so in the traditional approach, as I told you, so the steps are involved. First step will be we will extract a deployable file from process center, because all the processes are stored in the process center. Okay, second step is you will install the deployable file to the concerned process server. Okay, so it's a two-step job. Here you are basically having only one step in online deployment. Okay, so I will explain you this, the whole both things, using some PowerPoint presentation. Okay, so it's just the agenda of this. So here you can see the some definition is written. Online or connected deployment is an online process server runtime that is configured during installation and is automatically discovered and shown in the web-based process center console. Okay, what is trying to say, basically your process server okay, it will be connected directly to the process center. Due to that, only from the process center directly you can deploy in different process server. That's why it's called as a online or connected deployment. Second type of deployment is called as a offline deployment. An offline server is a process server runtime that is not connected to a process center. Okay, so that's the difference. Offline servers can still be used when deploying snapshots of process applications. Okay, however, the method of deploying process application snapshot to an offline process server differs from the method for deploying process application snapshot to an online process server. So it says basically offline deployment is different from the online, that we will see it later. Okay, so these are the steps for online deployment. Okay, so in the online deployment, the first thing what you need to do, okay, you have to connect all of your environments. Okay, like because process designer and process center. Okay, so process center mostly work as a development environment. You will develop your process app and you will test it over there. Now suppose you have a test environment and you have the staging environment and you have a production environment. So what the first thing you need to do, you have to connect these environments to your process center. Okay, how do we connect this environment? So the process is quite simple. If you remember, okay, so the first thing is you have to have one installation of the process server. Okay, because you do not need a process center in test and other environments, because process center, as I told you, it works in two ways. One, it will be working as a repository. Another one is a runtime environment. Okay, so in development, repository is needed because we want to store all the processes. But if you go for the production environment where repository is not needed, only the runtime environment is needed. So for that, you will just have the process server runtime. Okay, so what you need to do, for each environment, you need to install a process server. Okay, now it is up to you whether you want to go for the ND topology or you want to install a standalone process server profile. Okay, so that's why in step 1 is basically the process server installation in other host. Okay, this step is needed when you want to install process server in other host. So install WebSphere application server, BPM package, database, and MDMGR and custom node. So if you want to go for ND profile in process server, you can go for this. Otherwise, you can go for the standalone profile. Okay, so fine, that is step 1. You basically you install the process server in other machine. Okay, now if step 2 is required, what it says, create a process server deployment environment in the process center from where you want to connect to the process server. So if you remember, when we were doing the custom installation, okay, in the custom installation, we were creating a deployment environment. So in the same deployment environment, when it got created, automatically my clusters, all 3 clusters were created. Okay, so though when we are selecting the deployment environment, if you remember, we had an option of whether I want to create a process center deployment environment or whether I want to go for the process server deployment environment. Because at the time of the installation, we wanted process center, so I selected the process center deployment environment. Okay, so similar way, you have to follow the same step, but at this point we will select the process server deployment environment because we don't need process center basically, because I don't want the repository thing. Okay, so that's why, so you need to select create a process server deployment environment. Then you have to select whether you have to go for the standard or advanced. So this is the second step, and you create the process server deployment environment in the same way, the way you created at the time of the installation. Okay, third step is create SSL connection between process center and process server. Okay, so the connection between process center and process server, because it will be HTTP connection, SOAP over HTTP. Okay, and I want this connection to be secured, so that thing you have to do it in the third step. Okay, so first step we already know, so I'm not going to explain you over here. So step 2 we will do, I will just show you from the slide what are the steps are involved here. Step 2, so if you remember, create the process server deployment environment. From the admin console, navigate to the deployment environment page. Okay, by clicking the servers and deployment environment. Launch the deployment environment wizard by clicking new on deployment environment page. The create new deployment environment page is displayed. Okay, we already know. So here you can see the similar sort of page will come over here. You can select the deployment environment. When you select as a new, the page like this, it will open. So here you have to give the deployment environment name. Here you can give your, suppose I'm going to create for test. Okay, so you can give some test name. Here you have to give your deployment environment username. Okay, each deployment environment will have its own unique username and password. So you have to give the username and password. Okay, fine. Confirm password, and now you have to select one. Okay, for in the top three, standard process server, advanced process server, advanced only process server. Okay, so which one we need to select? We need to select the if you have IID plus BPMN components, both you have the process app where you are using the BPL components also and BPMN component also. This you better select the advanced process server. Only BPMN, standard process server, only IID, advanced only process server. That's why it will show you over here. Run processes, services, and ISCA modules. ISCA module means BPEL, IID. In process application that are deployed from the advanced process center. Okay, so advanced process center is the from where you are going to deploy. Okay, or run modules that are deployed directly. Fine. Here you have the option which you can go for a single cluster, or you want to create 3 different clusters. Okay, application, remote messaging, or remote support cluster. Fine, so I selected this. Okay, then the next steps I have just kept it over here. Okay, next step the same, the way I explained you in when we try to install the process BPM. Okay, so that's why it says enter unique name for the deployment environment. In the deployment environment name field, enter the username for the deployment environment. Okay, you gave some user admin D or whatever you want, you can have. It is recommended to use a different administrator for each deployment environment because it will basically make you separate. Okay, rather than having a common username. Okay, fine. And next slide is, here you have to select, in the next slide you have to select the node, which node you are going to connect. Okay, so basically your test, production, and stage will have 3 different nodes. Okay, so here you have to select that particular node. Okay, which you want to connect. Okay, for which you want to create a deployment environment. Okay, so select that node, and once you have selected that node, it will ask you, okay, how many clusters you want to create. Okay, application, app target cluster, then messaging, infrastructure, and supporting infrastructure. These 3 clusters will be there, but how many you want to create? So suppose I selected 111 for each. Okay, if you have more load, you can create multiple also. Okay, fine. This slide is very, very important. Here actually you will provide the detail of, here actually you have the option of creating a offline configuration or creating a online configuration. Okay, if you select as a use server offline, it will create a, means it will a runtime profile it will create, but it will create an offline profile. Okay, so your server will be offline. But if you don't select the use server offline, then at that point you have to give the, okay, the host name where your next process server is installed. Okay, port number, okay, which port number you are going to connect, and then username and password for that server, was admin console, user ID and password. Okay, so here you can give the environment name, test, stage, production, whatever you want to make it. Okay, and these 3 details are very crucial. Okay, and here,
Yeah, Mohit.
yes, please.
Yeah, Mohit, I did not understand like which host it is where the next process server.
Yes, because see, try to understand what you are trying to do. You are trying to connect process, different process server with a process center. Okay, let me
Correct.
just show you, explain you using this slide. Okay. Okay. So how is it, as I told you from the diagram? So this is your process center. Okay. So
Okay.
process center might be in one host. Okay.
Okay.
Okay. Now with this process center, you have connected to multiple process servers. Okay. You want to connect.
Correct.
Okay.
One
And
one one could be the environment type, test, dev, and production.
correct. Okay. So this thing, okay, test, dev, and production. Now, what is happening in online? You are basically telling to the process center, okay, these are your process server, okay. So you are basically connecting. So these process server may not be there in the same host because it's a different environment, right? So I can keep in some different machine also. Okay, fine. Okay, now what's happening in the online deployment, you will tell, because this deployment environment which you are creating from here, this thing you have already installed. Okay, this much I already have. Okay, this is the first thing I need to do. So when you install the BPM the first time, automatically this much will be installed for you. Process designer and process center, this is already done. Okay, now what you are trying to
Correct.
do, you are trying to have a install the different environments. Okay,
Correct.
so suppose you want to install a stage environment. So first thing what you need to do, first thing you have to install a process server.
Okay.
Okay, that's what we did. That's why I explained you the first step. What you need to do over here, install the process server. Okay, now installing the process server, if you want to go for internally, if you're going to ND topology, if you want to go to standalone topology, it is up to you.
Okay.
Okay, so you install that process server in some machine. Now what you are going to tell to the process center, this process center, my stage environment is there in this particular
Machine.
machine, host machine. So what are the things you need to tell to this process center in order to connect here? First thing, host name. Okay, which host name it is there, then port number, by which port number you can connect. Okay, and then the admin user ID and password for the admin and was admin user ID and password, so that it should be able, because you will always have some sort of a security some credentials over here. Okay, like was admin and password.
Correct. And
Okay,
more,
these
more,
things you have to tell. So
yeah,
one second, once you provide these details, okay, so directly your process center will connect to the process server. Okay,
correct. Yeah,
got it.
yeah, got
So
it, more.
hmm,
Yeah, you see the deployment environment which you are creating,
mm-hmm.
it is on the process server machine or the process center machine.
Process center machine.
Oh, got
Okay,
it.
because in process center machine, what you will do, you will create a deployment environment for all. Okay, so you will create for a stage, you will create for because one process deployment environment is already created. Okay, because you have already process center is installed here. Okay, so one deployment environment is already created here when you, the
Okay.
first time when you will install. Okay,
Okay.
so by this is the default one which will refer to the process center. So when you are running any application, okay, by default in process center, it will use this deployment environment. It will
Hmm.
not use other deployment environment. Okay,
Correct.
but once you okay, once you will make other deployment environment and you will give this is the host name and password, then it will get connected to the process center. Okay,
Okay.
but if still when you run your process app will run from the default process center itself. Okay, so let me come over here. Okay, fine. So same thing, it come, I have explained over here in the slide itself. Okay, you have to give the environment name, enter an environment name of the process server, and then environment type, that's drop down, which environment type you want to create, And here there's a checkbox whether you want to have the server offline or online. If you select the checkbox offline, then you don't need to provide this IP, means host name and port number and ID and password. It means you will further connect your new environment. Okay, all the different username and password what you have to just provide. And here then again the next thing will be your database details. Okay, database detail for the process server, whatever database it is going to create. So same way you can provide a database detail, test the connection, and finally generate the deployment environment. Once it's created, so here I will come to SSL later. You will see in the server tab. Okay, in the server tab, automatically one server will be connected over here. Okay, automatically. Okay, so here, so that's, and here the status will come as a connected. Okay, if your status is connected, it means it's an online server. It is an actual server. It be, I will just explain you over here. So here, if you see, if you take your BPM, go to process center in the servers tab. Okay, so there is no server is here. So basically I have not connected any other profile over here. Simple. Okay, so you can add a offline server. So once if you have done that configuration, automatically one server will come over here. Okay, that's what it says, this slide. Okay, automatically here it will come as a status connected. Okay, you can also create an offline process server also. Okay, offline I will come later how to what to do the offline. Okay, so offline is like just it's a dummy server. Okay, it's not the actual server. So I just selected a dev and test offline server. Okay, create. So you can see one server is created, but the status is offline. It's a dummy server. It's no server at all. Okay, now how to deploy your application, your process app into the server. Okay, so for deploy, you can deploy like this. First thing, you need to take a snapshot of your process. Okay, suppose I want to deploy this Blue Shield Health app. So you can just click on Open in Designer, select get a snapshot, and right over here, like my data integrity, okay, 1.0. So take a snapshot first thing. Okay, now your snapshot is there. Go to your snapshot, Blue Shield, open this, go to your snapshot, and when you click over here install, automatically all of your server will come. Okay, so here I have created only one server, that is the offline server. Okay, so you can select the offline server. Similar way, you will get the online server also. Okay, so online server will automatically come, like once you do that configuration, automatically it will come over here. Okay, so you can same way you can install your process directly to the online server. If you just assume this is an online server, and if you click on the create installation package, so automatically this snapshot will get deployed in that online process server. You don't need to do anything. Okay, but here I am doing the offline deployment. So here it will just, because it's a dummy server, so it will deploy. Okay, but it will not run because I have not connected to any process server as such. Okay, so this is the advantage of online. Like online, you don't need to create any installable package and all installation, like deployable package. So immediately it will install. But there is a drawback also, like to the developer, you have to restrict all these access. Okay, so suppose if I have logged in with the WAS admin will not have the access to deployment environment of this production environment or test environment. Even if I can see the server, but whenever I will try to click on that button, create installation package, it will say permission denied. Okay, so to avoid all these things, sometimes companies will not go for the online, they will go for the more traditional approach, that is the offline approach. Okay, now
Yeah,
let's quickly.
Mohit, I have a question before that. This option of the servers.
Uh-huh.
The screen which shows the server, snapshot server.
Mm-hmm.
So this will be visible both in process center as well as process designer, right?
Yeah, both. Because in this process designer, this is basically the process center console only.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so it will be visible from both process designer as well as the process center console also.
Okay.
Okay, so if you want to see, I will just log in here to process center console. Okay, so this is the process center console. I went to process server and you can see your server over here.
Okay.
Okay, and the same way, if you want to install from here, just go here. You will get your snapshot data integrity, and you can click on the install. So it will come over here. Okay.
Okay. Correct.
So we discussed in this tutorial about online deployment. In the next tutorial, we will discuss in detail about the offline deployment. Thank you.